everyone, good morning and welcome to the Link Up. Welcome to all of you who are watching us locally, regionally and internationally. Today, a thrust in the digital arena with the launch of a Caribbean publishing platform. Now you can get to writing that book that you've always wanted to, and you can also have it published and have it available for sale. How? We're going to find out when we join our guest from TNT, JOSANNE Leonard, media consultant, a little later on. And rounding out this month, our theme, Finding Your Happy. It's been an interesting month so far, and it was also the month for, I think, the International Day, which is celebrated by women. And so we're going to focus on that as we close off March with Finding Your Happy. How do we do that as women? Are the challenges different for us than, they are for men? Well, we're going to find out more about that and how we can overcome that, and how we can put certain things into our lives which make that better. With Finding Your Happy with mental health consultant and creative systemic therapist, Dr. Janelle Chase-Mears. So stay with us as usual. It's going to be highly informative and entertaining. And I'd like to tell you to, keep a notebook and a pen on hand, because you never know what might interest you. So we'll be back with JOSANNE Leonard after the break. know, lots of things have come out of this whole pandemic, and one of the most important things for all of us is the access to each other, to information, to content online, on the internet. And creative people are taking that a step further. And it's going to benefit us here in the Caribbean, and we're going to find out just how as we chat now with our friend JOSANNE Leonard, veteran media consultant out of Trinidad and Tobago. It's always nice to see you, JOSANNE.
Hello, Peta, and hello to everyone in Barbados and anywhere in the world, else in the world, where folks are looking on at CBC online. Good morning, everyone, and good afternoon, and good night.
Exactly. Yes. You know, you always keep me up to date with so many things, and this one was particularly fascinating because I've always had, I think, along with everybody else, some intention to write at some stage, but publishing the actual novel or, you know, whatever has always been, I think, a daunting task and a hindrance in perhaps actually sitting down and doing it. But now we have a platform that's available called Digital Canopy. Tell us about it, JOSANNE. How did it come about?
Well, I'm, as you say, in the creative and cultural realm, people like us have been in the trenches for decades. I mean, the nicely colored hair doesn't belie the number of years. But seriously, yeah, I mean, we are challenged, and I think Digital Canopy, to zero in on directly on as an answer to your question, was really developed during the pandemic. What would have been the response of the parent company, the company Royards Publishing Company, which is largely an educational publishing company that has been in existence for 35, 36, 37 years, approaching 4 decades in the region, pan-regional. I'm sure parents and teachers, if they're looking on or if they look at this, they will recognize the name Royards in some of the books like Caribbean Reader Series, etc.
Yeah.
But the company, which is a family-owned business, which is really quite significant because it's not a conglomerate, felt the direct impact and was feeling the direct impact of digitalization taking place, but not being able to accelerate that for its products in the region because of our slow take-up of ebooks in the region and in their core business, which is education. When the pandemic hit, it was, no one was prepared for it.
No.
And of course, education was, and to a large extent still has been, impacted in ways that we have not even been able to quantify in terms of time lost in learning. Now, for those who, even if parents and teachers and so a lot of whom were challenged, had devices, a lot of them didn't have the internet and so. But then it also came to the point of the actual content, the books and so that are used in our classrooms in the Caribbean are not used digitally. Is these big heavy book bags that our kids from in primary school all the way up to high school have to lug around. So that even so what we found happening was that there was a heavy reliance on material that was out there produced in England and India and all of those kinds of places. In addition to which, the local publishers, meaning the regional publishers, found that not only were they not able to operate by way of the brick and mortar business because of the closure, but that a lot of schools and teachers were basically just copying their textbooks. And then, of course, and I mean, it was a response to the need to have continuous learning, so that they basically were copying the intellectual property and disseminating it to their teachers, who in turn were disseminating it to their students. So that's the kind of backdrop against which the digital transformation of Royals Publishing was accelerated. It was moving slowly because we have low take up in the region for ebooks, e-textbooks, and certainly we talk about the trade side, which is the literary arts side, where we don't sell a lot of books in this region unless you're a very big name, and then even then it's just a couple hundred copies constitute a bestseller in this region. So to actually make the decision to invest money in a time when you're losing money, when you don't know how long the pandemic is going to go on, when you're not sure every island, or I shouldn't say island because Belize and Guyana are not islands, but every CARICOM country more or less operates differently, although I must say that the OECS has done a lot more work to sort of have a more unified approach to doing what it's doing, even in education. They're quite ahead of the rest of the region.
Wow.
So with all of these sort of larger vector issues affecting the business and affecting the educational sector, it really was a leap of faith to say, you know what, we're going to go ahead and we're going to develop the digital platform. So that was the first thing.
Right.
The second thing was, if I may, the second thing was, what we do in the region is we talk the talk of transformation or of making ourselves more relevant, but we always go to the outside, or we look outward for external solutions. So from the time you begin to talk online, people begin to talk about, you know, iTunes or
Amazon,
Spotify. That's in the music, Spotify.
Any music, right?
And in books, it would be exactly.
Amazon and Barnes and Noble.
Exactly. Barnes and Nobles, etc. So the idea that we could see the silver lining in the crisis has to be matched and had to be matched by the fact that you were not just simply going to, one was not going to simply go through the usual gatekeepers. That was, to me, a significant development,
right,
because it really telegraphs where we need to be going in the region. All of our leaders, and lots of times in the nice speeches, we get all the right words and all the right things being said, but when it comes down to it, who and what are we using as we play in this digital space? So Digital Canopy was created by what I want to call Caribbean, but you know, the chief technical officer is Trinidadian by birth. He's a former national athlete, but this has been his business. They're one of the fintech companies springing up around the region with tremendous challenges stacked against them or to face. And they got to work because it was so easy and even cheaper to talk to a company in the US or to talk to a company in India. But what that does at the end of the day, it delivers a cost benefit on the front end.
right.
But then it yokes us to someone else's platform and someone else's
Exactly.
business model, which they can change at the drop of a hat. They can change their licensing fee structure. They can decide that this is no longer relevant because they're operating in first world environments where the technology is even more rapidly changing. So they can decide, well, something that they're offering now, they're no longer going to offer. So Dwight Narayan Singh, who is the co-managing director of Royals, he is the younger of the two Narayan Singhs. His father, Clifford Narayan Singh, started the company back in 1984. So he has been leading this digital shift and digital transformation. And so they went to work with a local company. Yes, they had to work with some of the developers wherever they are in the world. I mean, in terms of very technical things, but it's largely a homegrown solution to a homegrown challenge to enable the Caribbean
Okay,
to take
JOSANNE,
advantage.
I'm liking this on many levels, especially because it's homegrown. But that can also be seen as a hindrance because people always throw the size of our market in our face. You know, it's only what, 12 million people as opposed to 300 million and these large numbers. So what kind of market and what kind of numbers are we talking about in terms of dollar figures? Because I don't think people realize how big the publishing industry really is.
Well, again, you and I have had many conversations about the creative sector. Philosophically, this region has such a significant output in terms of Caribbean literature. The big names, your Lamming in Barbados, the Lovelace in Trinidad and Tobago,
Walcott.
Derek Walcott, you know, and coming through the ages right up to Marlon James and all of the younger writers who are emerging.
Kai Miller.
But, correct, but they're all seeking publishing deals abroad. They all, you know, and there are some companies like People Press, for example, that has made it, it's the Caribbean has become a core focus for it. So this shows, again, where we place little or no value and support for leveraging that creative output. Now, you know, I don't like to throw the numbers around, but I just want to use one because you ask about numbers. We don't even figure or factor into when they do these data analysis things. But the Global Book Publishers Market Report that spans 2021 to 2025, and they subtitle it COVID-19 Impact and Recovery Report, and it goes to 2030. It says, and let me read this. This is significant. The global book publishers market is expected to grow from 87.92 billion in 2020, which was 2 years ago, to 92.68 billion, and this is US dollars, in 2021, which was just last year, and at a compound annual growth of 5.4%. So it is saying that this growth is mainly due to publishing companies rearranging their operations, recovering from the COVID-19 impact. And this, which earlier had led to restrictive and, well, you know, shut down and the rest of it. The market, which is important to note, the market is expected to reach 104.21 billion
Wow.
in 2025. Now, these are all big numbers, and we trot out these numbers, but how do we play? How do we get a piece of that action? When you consider the literary output historically and what is continuing to happen, the fact that we have low readership in the Caribbean, the fact that to print en masse, we have to print in China or Turkey or India, then we have to ship into the region. And since COVID, every single business can tell you their shipping costs have gone up as high as freighting costs are like up 25-30%. So, I mean, when we look at, even if we just look at it, if we don't even have a passion or the confidence, the pure business tells us that in order for us to play in the game, to not have flight of intellectual capital as we've had with music and everything else, we need to use this period of post-COVID, which really thrust us into the digital space kicking and screaming, and adapt very quickly. And that's what a digital canopy can do. Because now you're not talking about, oh, well, we only have in the Caribbean basin, if you count in the DR, Cuba, Haiti, we have about 40 million people within the region. But that's nothing to snuff about. If even we sold and traded in and amongst ourselves in the Caribbean basin.
But we're so many of us are outside as well, have moved out of the region.
Correct. But the point being that the digital platform then means that you are no longer constrained by physical inventory to be held in any country, having a book agent, having a warehouse. And if even we talk about our diaspora communities, we're talking about being able to access content at the touch of your fingertips, literally. you know.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick break, Josanne. We're going to continue this because I'm sure that it is eye-opening for a number of people. And yes, you did mention, educational books and so on. But these, benefits are for all genres. So we're going to talk about that when we come back.
Right. I think for us, there are two sides to using Digital Canopy, of course. If we were to first look at the user side, for users, finding content on Digital Canopy is quite easy. You just enter the name of the book you're looking for within the search, or you can use our category search, you can use filters, you can search by author, by publisher, by genre, basically everything that you're looking for in terms of what the information you want, whether it's educational, non-fiction, fiction, they are all there for you on Digital Canopy at the time.
Cruise, the tech behind the digital platform, Digital Canopy, of whom Josanne spoke. So Josanne, pretty much an app, pretty easy to use. You don't have to be tremendously tech savvy, and it's there for the user just to download and so on, and for the writers to upload. So when we look at this, though, you were talking about educational. So I did say that it is for authors of all types of content. So do you have an idea how that will work in terms of, okay, I want to write a romance novel. I really don't. That's not the genre I'm going for. But I want to write a romance novel, and I start doing what I do. I write, I compile it. What happens next? What do I do?
Well, I mean, if we listened it to the very end there, it's very simple. You have a PDF file, basically,
Right.
and you are able to, as an author or publisher or self-published author, you're able to go onto Digital Canopy, upload your file. You create an account first, you upload your file, and voila. I mean, I'm sorry that we're not actually seeing it in real time, but
Yeah.
it's there. You go to www.digitalcanopy.com. Of course, you're not just going to be able to upload a book willy-nilly. You first have to have Digital Canopy as a hosting platform. So once the business side of it. In other words, there's an arrangement, a contract, if you will, a business arrangement between Digital Canopy and any potential or aspiring author or publisher. And once that, I mean, you can go and you can surf the site, but at the point at which to upload your book, obviously, until you actually become a client or a user of Digital Canopy for your business or for distributing your book, then obviously you won't be able to just put it there. But once that is in place, then the world is your oyster. You're able to go up on the site. You're able to create a publisher account if you're a publisher or self-author. So a publisher could be a publisher who has catalog already. I've been talking with Mrs. Calendar in Barbados, who has quite a few publications, for example, that she has put out under their publishing entity. So they can, in fact, as a publisher, use Digital Canopy to make their physical books that they may have available as ebooks as well, which means an additional revenue stream. For a new author or a self-published author who's never gone with a publishing house, and so you create a publisher account, you have your contract with Digital Canopy, you create your publisher account, and then you're able to create your own page. And there is one of the sound bites from Sheldon, which I hope we have a chance to play. I mean, I'll give you a quick hint on what it is, because it actually explains very, very simply how a publisher, and I'm using publisher to mean the self-published as well, like if Peta decides she's writing the history of Barbados, blah, blah, or the history of the CBC, and she decides she wants to do it as an ebook, what the experience is like, how you upload, what the site offers. The site offers any publisher or user who's uploaded content a unique sales report, data capture that allows you to see who has bought your book, from where, at what time of the day they bought the book, obviously the transaction, because the publisher is setting his or her price for their book. That has nothing to do with Digital Canopy. Digital Canopy is just enabling the process. What you put up on your page, the images that you use once they're not offensive, what you write about yourself, how you price your book, all of those things are left to the publisher. And I'm using publisher to say even the self-published.
Understood. We're going to see if we can find Sheldon's remarks on that, because I did have the one with how he mentions, how you can access offline, because as a user.
Yeah, that's another interesting feature. I think it was like in the timestamps that you have. It's like around
just before, So I sent them through to the director, so
great.
we can take a look at that.
Yeah, so that's how he describes how, what are the efficiencies of the platform, and how publishers understand clearly how they earn and how they are paid as well. You know what I mean, in terms of the arrangement. Yeah.
Right.
You mentioned the offline readers, and that's actually quite exciting, Peter, because a lot of people are challenged to carry a lot of data, for example, on their devices.
Exactly.
They rely a lot on Wi-Fi. So if you make a purchase, or when one makes a purchase of a book on Digital Canopy, you now own that, because you've paid a fee, whether that fee is you've bought the book outright, or whether the publisher has utilized the option of just doing it as a subscription model. So if it's a subscription model, Peta has put up her book, and she's decided, well, you know what, I think maybe there's some people who may just want to have the book for about 3 months because they don't want to load up their device. So Peta, you can set a condition whereby your book is available for outright purchase, or you provide other options in terms of people who may just want it for for a specific period. So once that happens and you do the purchase, or whether it's the outright purchase or the subscription, then you are able to download that to your device, and you now have it on your device, so that if you're going to the beach, you're taking a long drive with a friend somewhere, and you don't necessarily want to be using data or what have you, or you have a pay as you go and you have to maximize the use of your data. You have the content now on your device of
Right.
choice, and you're able to access it, and that's what
Okay.
the offline reader does. And it's
Yeah.
across all platforms as well.
Okay, well, I'm going to ask our director if we can share that information now from Sheldon on the offline reading.
Okay,
Well,
great.
that's great. If you're going mobile, then take your device with you. Once you've downloaded the app, you then have access to Digital Canopy content wherever you go, no matter if you're online or offline. The process would be to first install the application, log into your account, and once you've logged into your account, if you've made any purchases of any ebooks from Digital Canopy, they will be listed there. They're either your purchase books or purchase subscriptions. All your content will be found there. Now, on first entry for any book that you've just purchased, you would first have to download to your device. It is then safely stored on your device in an encrypted format that can be only opened with the Digital Canopy reader. The same goes for all devices. Once a book is purchased on Digital Canopy, it requires the user's unique login to view that book.
That's
And just taking some of the information from their launch. So very good to have it there. But what JOSANNE was talking about in terms of, uploading your books and so on, Sheldon did explain how publishers and authors can upload their books and also track sales, which is very, very critical to finding out just how your book is being received. So I think we have a little bit from Sheldon on that.
and sales through their own unique account on Digital Canopy.
With Digital Canopy, those who aren't published or those who are published or publishing houses can all have the same benefit on Digital Canopy. Once you create an account and you're approved, you can begin uploading your PDF content and have those for sale. Once you've uploaded your content and you've entered the relevant information for it in terms of pricing, the title, ISBN numbers, and so on, your book now becomes an official book for sale on Digital Canopy. You can add interactivity to your book. So let's say you were a teacher or you were willing to produce a multiple choice quiz type book for a practice test per se. And you can make this book a multiple choice, which your readers can then respond to the multiple choice questions, answer them, and receive a real-time score as they go through all the questions. This would help greatly with preparing for examinations and help our Ministry of Education and other relevant stakeholders in the education fraternity look at education in a different way.
Interesting. Now let's see how others view it. Let's take a trip, JOSANNE, to Jamaica and hear from your friend Clyde McKenzie, who's an entrepreneur.
Oh, you actually... I didn't realize you were using that.
Yeah, I found that specifically interesting from the perspective of, the international names which are featured in there, which I think, well, let me let Clyde say it.
Digital Canopy is an important project for the region. So often we have heard of different distribution mechanisms, but they are not dedicated to the Caribbean, which is a space that is fertile for literary and musical output. And so I think having an entity which is devoted and dedicated to Caribbean literature is most important, because we're seeing a flourishing of Caribbean publications these days. And, you know, even in Jamaica, we're seeing the rise of so many young and gifted writers, you know, the Kai Millers, the Marlon James, and, you know, the Aishian Hutchinson, and you could name so many of them, you know, Sapphire Sinclair. They are rising and they are taking over the world. And the thing we want to know is that we can reach Caribbean people, and we can do so on our terms. And that, I think, is the important thing, because historically you find that our cultural products have often been controlled from the outside. And I think it's time to change that paradigm. What is happening is that I am now involved in the publishing business because I see not only the value of putting out books, but the subsidiary value, you know, where you can convert these literary works into audiovisual content. And right now, we're doing the release of a book by Copeland Forbes called Reggae My Life Is. It's a play on Peter Tosh's Reggae My Lightis. He worked extensively with Peter Tosh over the years. You know, he was there for a number of Peter's important inflection points in his career, and he has stories to tell, not only about Peter, who he worked with, but also a number of other Jamaican acts, including Marley, including Bunny Wailer, including Jimmy Cliff, including Tosh, including Dennis Brown. In fact, just to say, almost all of the major players in the Jamaican music industry he has worked with. And, you know, the book is really very amusing and, you know, chock full of anecdotes and historical information, you know, and people get a back story on so many important events in Jamaican and Caribbean pop music. But one should understand that our music is so influential in modern popular culture. So, for example, when you hear about Peter Tosh, Copeland will also tell you about his relationship with Mick Jagger and, you know, all of these players. So the book is filled with encounters with people like Reverend Al Sharpton, with people like Don King, Richard Branson, Island Records head Chris Blackwell, and then, you know, all the stories about all the bands from the region, Third World, and, you know, their interactions with other bands, including the Commodores and so many of them. So it's a great story and a great book, and I'm looking forward to a collaboration with Canopy in terms of exposing this book to the region.
How are you going to, well, not you, but that's amazing. I want to read that book, actually.
Yeah, that was a nice long piece.
Yes, it was. But I think it encapsulated so much from the other side, how it can help to push it forward. But one thing does the author market the book themselves? Is their page supposed to do that? How is the marketing of the product done?
I think it's a hybrid.
Okay.
Even if, because everyone is using social media, as a matter of fact, just about every product and service or personal thing goes up on social media. But Digital Canopy itself has been investing in the digital marketing strategy. So really, it is a partnership. Amazon, for example, doesn't unless you make it into their top box, they're not doing anything for you. You can put your book there, but at the end of the day, you have to get your book sold. They just make the site available to the customer. Correct. With Digital Canopy, it's small, it's growing, it's building different kinds of relationships. so that they've been putting money, they've been, and of course, as the platform expands even more, so that they've upped the ante on their digital marketing strategy, so that authors and publishers are finding their content being promoted by Digital Canopy at no cost to them because it's on Digital Canopy's social media. But also the Digital Canopy site allows for any author or publisher to determine that they want a banner, for example, and they want to run a particular kind of banner for a particular period of time. Those are the kinds of add-ons that are available. And those are the business discussions that take place between Digital Canopy and its clients. But it does require using your social media and your own networks, which you have to do anyway if you want your books to sell.
Yeah, well, some of my favorite authors that I do get for my Kindle, you know, will email you blasts of what novels they have coming up and that sort of thing. And then there are also the pages, you know, on Amazon, which you can follow and keep up to date. And, you know, once you tag them, then you will get the information. JOSANNE, I don't want you to disappear just yet. This is, you know, great, and I'm really happy that you allowed us to share the information on Digital Canopy.
I'm happy that you're...
And I hope that our local authors will take advantage of that, and the ones who are thinking of writing, that this will, you know, perhaps give them the impetus. But I want to chat with you on the other side of the break about finding you're happy, because that's our theme for the month of March. And just before we go, here's one of the authors who's completely thrilled with Digital Canopy. Have I surprised you, director? I certainly hope not. We're going to go to break.
Here they are. Drum roll.
This is Marsha Boone-Speaking. I'm the founder of Caribbean Books Foundation, and I'm also a local self-published author and illustrator. I write children's books, romance, and folklore fantasy fiction. My goal is to introduce the world to Caribbean tales and to tell our stories our way. Today, I'd like to give Digital Canopy a standing ovation, a round of applause, because you are providing a much-needed, united Caribbean platform for writers. As we tell our stories, we also need industry support to promote and sell these stories. This is a wonderful opportunity for Caribbean authors. I encourage the public to support Digital Canopy in this brave and pioneering move by purchasing books on the platform from regional authors. Let us work together to make a new standard.
JOSANNE Leonard is someone who I enjoy chatting with, honestly, and you learn so much. And during our 50th year of independence, I had the opportunity to share the broadcast with her. That was certainly fun. And over the years, the wealth and depth of her knowledge is just totally mind-blowing. And so I always, you know, will bow to her experience and so on when it comes to creatives and the whole push. Now we have a name, Josanne, it's called the orange economy. It's got a color. It's got a color. It's orange.
Well, first of all, well, that's nice and bright, isn't it?
Yeah, quite.
You actually brought a little tear to my eye there. I don't want to blink. I mean, it was so lovely.
No, it's from the heart.
That.
It's from the heart. It's true.
Yeah, and
it's how I feel.
I mean, we don't do enough of that in and amongst ourselves. You know, by our love, so many things can happen.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for those kind words. And you know, Barbados, like Jamaica, like St. Vincent, anywhere in this region, I consider home. But Barbados has a very special place in my heart, as you know.
The creatives have taken such a beating during this pandemic. Some of them have been able to find a niche, and others haven't. And it's only now that we're seeing them coming out and actually opening up about the difficulty of the whole lockdown process. I was chatting with Mikey Halsmeyer from the Red Boys the other day, and you know, he used the word decimated. That was what the sector was, and they're now beginning to come through this. What is your observation as we move forward? I know that, you know, yes, we've been through this, but hopefully there have been lessons learned. And so I want to know your thoughts and perhaps your idea on such lessons.
Well, you know me, Peter, I don't think in silos. And I think there are things that obviously affect specifically, particularly what we would call the live performing sector, because the lockdowns affected everyone in terms of restricted movements and the ability to do any number of things. But with the live performing sector, it exacerbated, as it has in other areas, what are some of the deep fissures and cracks that we have not really addressed in terms of, if we're talking now specifically about the quote-unquote orange economy. You know, I'm always a little tickled when I realize, you know, that the big agencies come up with these wonderful names and whatever it is to sort of say, okay, well, this is what it now is. But you know, there's a dimension that I don't think that has been spoken about a lot, and that is, I mean, I'll come back to the economic or the decimation issue as raised by Mikey, is that it is music and films and books and all of those things that keep us, you know, that reflect our humanity. And actually, that was more so during the pandemic. But we are challenged to think about how our cultural and creative economy really has been historically relegated to it really being one of the drivers, and especially of a new kind of opportunity, if you will, especially when it intersects with technology, because then the technology, as what happened, you know, the face-offs or all the things that happened, it happened with some of the big names. But if we go back to just thinking, okay, the place is opening back up, and that means whatever the model was before, that's the way it's going to be, then we would not have learned any lessons.
Exactly.
So the example of a digital canopy means that that must be an example of uh, of our own Spotify's and our own Apple wallets and Google wallets. In other words, if we just look about our business, then we won't find ourselves talking about the fact that everything that happens out that is produced elsewhere has such a deleterious impact on us. I can't imagine what it must be like or what it would have been like for the people who rely on live performance uh, uh, as a means of living. But I think if we go back into the crab in a barrel uh, approach, if we go back to thinking that crop over and Trinidad and Tobago Carnival and as some of the flagship festivals are just about the party, and we don't pay attention to what I call the nurseries and those incubators where new creatives or new creative content is being produced, then we would have learned absolutely nothing from the disaster that was visited on humanity in COVID-19 and how it affected us in the region. And when you have, for example, and I'll say it because I'm not an employee, when we can have a Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation, the CBC, in its new incarnation, having to revitalize and be reinvigorated to be at the center driving content for us across the region and for those who are further afield, because we are still heavily downloaders of content from the metropolitan north.
Right.
We have the CNN, the BBC, the Fox NBC, the ABC, whatever it is. We don't need it. I mean, people are going to come with some kind of foolish argument about, well, you know, that's freedom of choice and we must have freedom to choose. If today, tomorrow they decided to shut down their operation, what is your freedom of choice?
Exactly.
We need to go about our business. We need to be thinking differently about how we take our assets like the Caribbean Broadcasting Corporation and others across the region and create our own platforms using the technology to uplink, not to be constant downloaders of other people's information and technology.
I'm happy to say that, you know, coming out of the pandemic, the Link Up was created, you know, and they were open to it. And yes, you know, here we have the opportunity now, and I have the opportunity to chat with people from all corners of the world. It just depends on the internet, you know, because I always have some issues sometimes with Liberia, but we have that opportunity now, and we chat with people the world over, you know, so it's there, and that came out of the pandemic. And this is why I understand what you're saying, that we can have a regional news body like Al Jazeera and even the CNN and so on, if we just put our minds to it. However, how did JOSANNE find her happy? And how do you continue to? Yeah, and how do you continue to?
You know, for the younger people, they might say, what is this woman about? You know, old age has some privileges.
Amen.
And I don't mean old age meaning, you know, decrepit and so. I've always been a sort of, if you will, my own kind of warrior, willing to trod my path, and sometimes it has cost me heavily and so. But I really, I think to find one's happy is to not look for anything outside. It really is about self-love first. Without self-love, it's like it's the flight attendant, it's the announcement you get in the aircraft. You know, if there is a drop in pressure, the oxygen mask will fall from the ceiling above. Take it and pull it onto your, you know, in other words, you have to look after yourself before you can look after anyone else, no matter how well intended. My happy is the journey to Um, for me, more now, the spiritual, if you will. I mean, I don't want to sound pious or anything, but that inner peace and calm and understanding my place in the universe, um, and being more conscientious about my interactions. Sometimes I fall short, but I think by and large, empathy. Those are the things that, and how I am able to listen to people now. Maybe my children would say differently. Um, well, there's always that
Of
dynamic, isn't
course,
there?
yes.
Um, but my happy is on the flippant side. Here we go. I like to look at a lot of movies. I mean, I'm really critical. I'm a serious box person. Um, I read a lot, and I go down a lot of rabbit holes sometimes because of it. Because
Quite.
sometimes I'm on my device. I know I'm phone, and I should have just been checking one thing, and next thing you know, 4
That's
hours have
me.
gone,
That's me.
and my eyes are blurred now.
Yeah.
But from one thing to the other to the other. But the discovery, the world that the internet has opened in terms of people who think and ideas and things that we didn't know of before. I'm learning so much. So my happy is, gosh, I would just um, want to see our region become more self-reliant. My happy would be all the work that we've done over the years that we can, it's, like when you're in the casino, you could
Yeah.
cash in the chips,
Yeah.
that those who are there now would see the value of cashing in on the chips, so that we don't have these big gaps and we don't dance to the beat of someone
Someone
else's drum.
else's
So
drums.
yeah, so the thing is, who I am professionally is who I am personally. Who I am personally is who I am professionally. Obviously, I'm not going to turn up in my 90 on a TV show, because that's the thing. I love to just walk around in my little old dress. I mean, it's amazing. If you turn up at my house unexpected, I'm some old soft something that's so worn and
Comfy.
feels so good on my skin.
Yep.
So my happy are very simple things. I just don't really want to be worrying about not being able to get good health care,
Right.
or be able to afford food. And I think that those are things for everyone. But my happy is that we actually find more love. Because that makes so many things possible. To stand in the other person's shoes, even you're disagreeing with them, and to understand other people's conditions. We become too selfish,
Yeah.
too self-centered, a lot of self-aggrandizement because of technology, and people who are in love with seeing their fake profiles because they're always making themselves look so fantastic on social media when they're catching their nenen at home. So I went all over the place. I don't know if I
It's
said
okay.
anything
It's
in there.
okay. You said quite a lot of which I agree with and I see me in. And I want you to continue to be happy, and we're going to continue to link up, Josanne. Thank you so much.
Oh, listen to me. This was long overdue. I mean,
Quite.
digital canopy aside, we always are so rushed when we have a chat. And this
Yeah.
morning was like two friends meeting, two friends in full view, just having a good old natter.
That's what
And
I
to
want
everyone
this
who
space to
stayed with
be.
us, yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so happy that I was able to share it with you and all of your viewers,
Thank
wherever
you
they
very
are.
much,
So,
Josanne. You
bless up.
too. You stay safe.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay,
More
bye.
to come right here on the Link Up. it's really, really sad when everything in life now comes down to like talking about memes. The whole digital arena is like taking over. Okay, so Peter and the chair just now nearly separated. Do you think everyone was concerned that I nearly fell? No. They were concerned that I might become a meme. Right. Thanks, guys. Thank you so much. I'm fine. I'm good. I'm well. I'm finding my happy. And my happy, truthfully, all jokes aside, is doing this. And being part of how you will receive information and correct information, positive information, uplifting information. That's part of my happy. So as we close off the theme Finance Month, I could not end the month without talking with our next guest. Dr. Janelle Chase Mears is, yes, a mental health consultant, but she's so much more. There's so much more to her, and I'm very, very happy that we were able, that we were able to get her to join us today on the Link Up. Good morning, Dr. Chase Mears. How are you?
Good morning, Peta. I am wonderful. Loving today's theme, finding your happy.
Finding your happy.
Finding your happy. I love it.
Now, I know people have many definitions for happiness or even the word happy. I know that some people tell you that happiness is internal, coming externally. But then there are others who might differ. So let's look at happiness. How do you, as a mental health and mental wellness consultant, look at happy and look at happiness?
So I love that you asked that as the starting question, because I believe in definitions. And I think for me, happiness is really about the attunement or the ability to gain a sense of contentment, to gain a sense of joy in the endeavors that you do and the things that you like to experience. That's where it would start with happiness. So as we grow developmentally, we have different levels of experiences and happiness. So we may enjoy school, we may actually enjoy playing with our friends, we may enjoy being successful at school. I know for me, I enjoyed sports and physical activity at school. That's really what I went to school to do. True story. You know, I didn't really go to school to get grades. I went to school so I could play volleyball and run track. That made me happy. But there was a sense of contentment and there was a sense of joy. And I think it also comes in relation to your relationships. We're often happier in relationships where we do not have to pretend, or people actually trust us that we have the capability to grow and to blossom in the way that we're supposed to blossom.
Right. So we're talking environment. We're also taking a look perhaps at how we were, brought up, to use a good Bajan phrase. So how I find it fascinating when I read now about parenting styles and so on, and allowing children to express their emotions and when I think back, 60 years ago, well, no, then let's say 59 or 58 years ago, when I was like 2, if I expressed my emotions, I was made to keep quiet very quickly. Children must be seen and not heard and that sort of thing. So it's also generational, I think, in terms of
Absolutely.
how you find your happiness.
Absolutely. The culture of happiness has changed as well, too. I think we have to be really honest about that. And I was having a conversation this morning with one of the professors that I work with at UWE, and I was talking about, we don't think about Caribbean mental health as a dynamic, diverse way of approaching how we are actually successful in life. Because we come from a lot, and I'm obsessed with chattel houses, and a lot of people don't even understand the houses came from the word chattel, which were people of African descent were 3/5 of humans. So when you bring in the word context of happiness, of finding your happiness, and I was listening to your guest before I jumped on, you know, we really do have to define our happiness. And it is culturally component. It is the scene, it is at the times that we're living that happiness it looks different for a lot of people. So before my mother or, you know, my grandfather, his happiness may have been to just be able to provide for his household. Right? Now the happiness may be the ability to emotionally regulate and speak your mind to other people. Because back in the 1800s, we couldn't do that. You know, so there are a lot of levels that we don't have larger discussions about when we want to include the concept of happiness and contentment and joy. There is a difference.
Now, speaking of difference, you just brought in the male aspect. Do women and men process emotions, and I know emotions, yes, but challenges and so on differently?
Absolutely. Male brain and female brain are not the same. So
We
even
know
though they attune, even though we receive happiness as females, nurturing, guidance, helping. Men are about productivity, right? Building, creating. Prefrontal cortex is wired differently for us as females than it is for men. Decision making, women can make more effective decisions. I know men don't want to hear that, but it's true because we can nurture a little different. So yes, the concept of what's going to be happy and what emotionally regulates a male is going to be different from what emotionally regulates a woman. And then when you go into the cultural context where we have boys who are not allowed to express their emotions, or they're asked to manner, or they're asked to not to be girly. That's the language you use, right? Don't be a girl. Were you crying, right? Or when a girl is crying, the language we use is that she's too emotional or she's too sensitive. So culturally, we also define how people ought to emotional regulate, when in fact we need to understand that we have to look at how we emotional regulate within our family context and then within our societal context, and whether or not those particular strategies of emotional regulation, whether or not it's working.
Right. But even in the sense of how we perhaps would prefer our children to play, you know, you don't give, well, you didn't back in my day, you didn't give boys kitchens and frying pans and stuff. You gave them trucks and cars and that sort of thing. But now that's changing, you know. The roles are different. Boys can play with dolls and people don't give them the side eye like they would have back in my day. But then you also have now so much more information out there about gender identity and where that comes into play. It's so much more top of mind, you know, that when a child says to you how they identify, they're heard now a lot more than they would have been poo-pooed years ago.
Absolutely. I think there are concepts. So there are two different concepts you're talking about. You're talking about living skills.
Yes.
So every male and female need to know how to cook. You know, comb their hair. They know how to bathe. They need to know how to clean. Because if you live by yourself, unless you're going to be wealthy, you're not going to get a maid. Let's start there, right? But then also the concept of understanding gender. That's also a family concept. It's also a cultural concept. And I think larger to the fact, and a lot of people don't know this, the human brain is not fully developed till it's 25. So when you're having conversations about gender, and when you're having conversations about sexual orientation and all of that stuff, you have to factor in how does the brain process information. And sometimes we're shortchanging because of cultural dynamics, or we're shortchanging because of Western influences. So we have to be very mindful and very careful of that as we are developing as human beings, right? The body is still going to be the same body.
Right. But if doesn't that create a problem, because your identity, your self-identity though, comes a whole lot earlier than that.
Identity is always there. Personality and temperament is always there in children. However, it's just that we're having larger conversations about the personality that the child may have, but it grows. Now, I teach adolescent psychology, and one of the reasons why I love teaching that is the population that is probably most disenfranchised in the society is the adolescent, because that's where they're trying to find their self-identity. Yeah, they're trying, and unfortunately, and I don't want to say that a lot of people don't know this. This is where a lot of people get unhappy.
I was going to say this.
So many times, yeah.
Yeah, I remember your teens are brutal. Very much so, because you're also dealing with a whole pile of hormones that, just sending you out of whack. So they're crazy times. Teens are crazy times.
Unfortunately, we're not spending time with our teenagers to help them identify. So I tell my class all the time, we have the common entrance syndrome, right? In the Caribbean. At 11 plus, I will run circles for you, around you, all that sort of stuff. At 12, you're on your own. But the danger with allowing a child to be on their own and not having a level of guidance and mentorship is that they then go into circles and silos of other children who've been left on their own very quickly. And so they then have to navigate and figure out life on their own. And then they go into households where the parents are under a tremendous amount of stress, because the parents, from a developmental standpoint, are often middle-aged. So they have to deal with their parents, and they have to deal with their children, and they have to deal with their career and their jobs. So therefore, then it becomes a lot more harder for adolescents to find their happy, because they're now trying to find who they are as individuals. And that does impact how they're going to be contented or how they're going to be joyful in the long run.
But question, isn't that also the time of life when you kind of sort of push your parents away?
I disagree.
You disagree?
Because most parents say this: you're a teenager now. That's often a rite of passage language.
Okay.
And so it's not you're a teenager now, let me help guide you and mentor you. You're a big boy now, so you should know how to do this. You're a big girl now, so you should know how to do this. I shouldn't have to be telling you this. Now imagine this: I've had you as my rock for the last 7 years, from 4 to 11. You've been doing extracurricular activities with me, taking me lessons, whatever the case may be. And then when I hit 13, I have to do a lot of things on my own. I got to navigate bus. I have to, we literally separate ties, and we use that language. Parents say this even before they experience, she's 13 now, so she can go at attitude. We speak this into our children's lives.
It's true. I can agree with that. Yeah. But
and so it's really a time for us but we're busy doing other stuff.
Yeah.
We're busy trying to find contentment in our career. We're busy trying to problem solve our parents as they get older. We're busy doing the mortgage. So a lot of our teens become wayward because they lack direction. And children love direction and mentorship. That's why they go and hang out in parks with each other.
Interesting.
And there's always one kid that has leadership potential. And it doesn't matter if they're leading them down the wrong road or the right road. Because I have no one else in my life that I look up to or I can have these robust conversations with, I'm going to go with my pack. Because humans are pack animals.
Oh, yeah, we are. Very social animals in that sense.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Our happy for our teenagers has to be, how do we find a way to include them? In our conversations and the things that we're doing. They really don't want to not be around you. But if every time I'm around you as a teenager, you say that I have an attitude, eventually I'm just going to continuously have an attitude that is not rooted in contentment. And I even go down the line of language. How many of us thank our teenagers for doing things? Oh, he should know, oh God, thank you for that kind of stuff. But if you don't thank him, if you don't apologize to him, because that's how our younger kids learn, right? When they're doing something, what do we say? Well, sorry. You got to say thank you. When they get older and we're not reinforcing the behavior to them, they lose the practice of the behavior.
Wow. Okay. We got lots more to unpack here, and this is just finding you're happy. So if you're unhappy right now with the way your teenager is going, perhaps you might have to look at just how you're speaking to them, what you're speaking into them. Okay, as I said, you gotta sit down with a notepad and a pen sometimes. We're going to be back after the break. Some home truths coming from Dr. Chase Mears just now about how we raise our children. We think that we are raising them to be strong and independent, and it seems as though we're also, by using that particular process to achieve that, also creating some kind of conflict within in terms of all that you're trying to achieve, so we have to watch our words. That's one way of helping them find their happy. But what about the things in life that they are interested in and we not so much? How does that impact on our children?
You're asking some really great questions today, as usual.
Thank you.
So let me just say about our children's interests and our perception of what they should be interested in. We don't own our children's brains. We don't own our children's bodies. We just are conduits to them being part of this world experience. And the more open we can be to what they are interested in, and open meaning having dialogue, because you may disagree, it may not fit or sit in your value proposition as a family member, but that's also one of the reasons why it's important to have vision in your parenting. Because if your vision is to help your child be emotionally regulated and help your child to be happy and contented with what it is that you have provided as a parent, then you're going to be open to having these dialogues. But let's be real, sometimes because parents have to juggle all of those external things, this is not at the forefront of their mind. And so when children have a genuine interest, I believe that parents do need to spend some time having conversations first. And conversations may sound like, what about this interests you? Or what about this that allows you to focus for 2 to 3 hours? You know, I know my consistent conversation with my son is, these people paying you for playing video games? And then we segue into let's go to coding. Let's go learn about coding. Let's go learn about, let's see how we can build income.
Take it further.
Right? Yes. So I think having conversations about, oh, I just like it, okay. And then also having an opportunity to throw them in the ring with professionals who are doing these things as well too. That helps generate a sense of interest and a sense of support for you as a parent in helping your child find their happy. But I will also want to encourage our viewers to be mindful that the interest never stops in life. We have this whole concept, especially when we are grooming young children or raising adolescents, that they should know what they want to do. On any given day, I have a different outfit for the roles that I have. That's why I'm a creative systemic therapist. Right. I like sewing, I like working out, I like doing interviews, I like doing sessions, I like writing books. That's a varied amount of, interests.
Yes.
And as human beings, we want to encourage more interest because that's what keeps you alive. And that's what keeps you productive in your lived experiences. So we have to be very careful how we pigeonhole our children and ask them to become something that we vicariously want to live through them. And that's what happens a lot to teenagers. Like, you're going to do what?
Yeah, why do you want to do that? Where's the money in that? How are you going to pay your bills? Blah, 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 blah. And that's the reason I asked that question, because I do see that happening a lot,
Yes.
All right, so can we move now into the next age group? Let's take a look at the, wait, hold on, the millennials now, generation what?
I don't know. So
oh, good.
I do better with 21 to 35, and we can have a conversation.
All right, that's the age group I'm talking about. I don't know what the title is for them right now. I would have to look it up. I just know me. I'm a boomer.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Okay.
I think they're millennials. That's what you call them.
Still,
right?
I guess.
Yes. So in terms of their happiness, so let's look at the fact that if we don't have a really good adolescent childhood experience, we're up against a lot in finding who we are. And so then you would find that a lot of young adults then gravitate to drug use or a lot of risky behavior that you and I may not necessarily like, right? That's if they don't have a great upbringing. And a great upbringing doesn't mean that you come from nuclear family.
Right.
Because we have some nuclear families that the parents don't talk to one another.
Right.
So my thing is, a great upbringing is where your parents have a great vision for you and have spent a lot of time mentoring you and guiding you and giving you space for you to grow exponentially into the person that you're supposed to be. That's what I consider a great upbringing. The demographics of the house doesn't mean anything. Because you got rich people and you got poor people and you got in-between people that don't have time for their children.
Right.
And you also have those same people that make time for their children. So it's about the visioning and the parenting. But when we get into 21 and 35, you're also up in a larger pool. So now there's a lot of comparative analysis between what I ought to be at 21, or how successful I ought to be, or I should be finished with, if you're in Barbados University, what will my love life look like? Should I start a family? All of those things are happening from a developmental stage between 21 and 35. And if I didn't have a good foundation, right, it's going to make my life experience a lot more difficult. Yeah. But I find that one of the things that also happens, though, is that we have a lot more freedom between the ages of 21 and 35. So we move out, we have our own space, we have roommates. And so we now become the formation of our own thoughts and try to get rid of some of the thoughts and voices that have been potentially really loud in our head when we were growing up.
Right. But now you've got the advent of this virus that has shut down the world for 2 years. Many of you are now, let's say, out of work. You've just started, you know, and then all of a sudden this pandemic happens and you're out of a job, you know, and you're finding it difficult right now to still pick back up and find a job again. So, but you're seeing perhaps friends getting through and you're not. So how do you find you're happy when you feel like if life now has kept you down?
I go back to what I was saying about the adolescents. That's why mentorship and guidance is so important. And for every stage and every adversity in our life, we require guidance and mentorship. We're relational people, we're pack people, we're social animals, right? And sometimes, especially in that age range, having a mentor is better than having a job. Having somebody guide you in situations and spaces and, you know, tell you where you can actually maybe blossom or where you need to pull back, it's invaluable. And we don't think about that in that age range because people want to kind of beat the chest and come true. Well, I was able to accomplish this. But at what stress level did you accomplish this?
Yeah.
You know, at what mental health challenges or crisis did you accomplish this? I tell people, it's so funny, I tell people A stands for anxiety in the educated world. Because all the people who fussing for A's, don't want no B's, are often the ones that are most anxious in life. They don't enjoy life.
Wow.
Yeah, I was
so
watching.
the
I was
A-type
watching.
personalities then are anxious people. That's what the A is for.
They may have. They have. We all have. We all can. Our nervous system can all dysregulate into anxiousness, right?
Yep.
However, there are some people that are more prone to that, right? Because of the things and the behaviors, since even the foods that they're eating. You know, the more coffee you ingest determines a lot how your nervous system is going to work.
Right.
So we have a situation when we have individuals between 21 and 35 and they are trying to do everything on their own. They got overwhelmed. There's a sense of feeling stuck. And so therefore, finding their happy is often external. It rarely comes from a place within. And so you party more, you go out more, you hang out with friends more, you spend more money on frivolous things. Like, you know, somebody was to tell me.
My wild time, I think that, you know, if you want to put it like that, you really and truthfully didn't think of anything else, but the external. Yeah. We
had fun, and if anybody told me that fun, fun would that $2,000 you probably spent every quarter could be done on a down payment on a house. Maybe we would have changed. You don't want to hear
that. Yeah, you didn't want to hear that.
know?
Yeah.
But now you at 35 and you're trying to figure out stuff and you're on the latter end. And what a lot of people don't understand, we spend more time, hopefully, on the latter side of 35 than we spend on before.
True.
So you could be 35 all the way to 80, 90. And we don't spend a lot of time prepping ourselves well enough for us to continuously be happy in those latter stages.
Right.
When you think about what's happened culturally with us with lifestyle diseases, I no longer call them NCDs because that's not what they are. They're lifestyle diseases because the fixes are lifestyle prescriptions.
Right.
And when we're 21 and 35, we do the most because we believe that our vitality, our youth will set us apart. And you know what's they saying that they said youth is wasted on the
young.
Yeah, or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I say that.
It really is true.
It's true. It's true.
Because we're just living life not on purpose. Mm-hmm. We're just living life.
Right, and you feel you're invincible. At that age, basically. Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
And we're supposed to because our brain is hardwired to take risks. So we'll take a lot more risks. We'll move to a foreign country. We'll ride a motorcycle. We'll have deeper conversations and more impassioned conversations. we are hardwired to do that, but risk without mentorship or guidance is sometimes a very dangerous road that we play. So hence we now have a situation where you have 40-year-olds or we have 45-year-olds who are sick, or we have 40-year-olds or 45 who may already gone through 1 or 2 marriages. Then we then have to really do live life on life's terms, and sometimes it becomes a lot more difficult to maneuver, especially when you add things like the pandemic, which none of us signed up for. But this is our particular one. This isn't World War II. This isn't the Great Depression. But every generation has something.
Right.
This is our something.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
We're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to take a look at the age group 35 to, right. And then we'll get to mine eventually. So, yeah. We're going to take a quick break and come back. Okay, I was getting a little lesson there. Anyone born from 81, you said, to 96. So 1981 to 1996 are now, they're the millennials. So they're aging out now. It's no Gen Z or something or the other that, listen, we can just do as Janelle said, and we're talking age blocks. So now we're between 35 and 50, I think you said, Janelle?
Yes.
Okay.
We're gonna put middle adulthood, right? This was if you go in the psychological, any books and the psychology books, they'll have these terms: middle adulthood, adolescent, childhood.
Right.
So I'm gonna go with those, but I'm
Middle
sure there's some
adulthood.
books that have Gen Z and millennials and all of that
Right,
stuff.
okay.
We love identifiers for whatever reason. I'm never sure.
Just like I said
Yes.
to JOSANNE, just know that the creatives are now the orange economy. So yeah, we love these titles. Okay,
Yeah.
so this is middle adulthood that we're talking about. So we're talking mortgages, we're talking children, getting them to school, we're talking, finding how you get to work and how they get to school, packing lunches. I'm talking
Navigating relationships.
Navigating relationships and all of that sort of wonderful stuff. Okay, finding your happy.
Whew. This is tough. And why I say it's tough is because this peer group or this age group is so responsible for so many things. And this age group or this peer group rarely talks to anybody about the amount of things that they are dealing with. So finding your happy between the ages of 35 and 50 has to be an intentional and deliberate act. Because what is happening on my end, what I'm seeing is that we're having a lot more people coming through with not only mental health challenges, but they're looking to take their lives, suicide ideations, attempts, because they've gone through all of the stuff that they went through at the beginning. Childhood may be a little rough, adolescent was a little harder, teenage years, they did a lot of stuff that they weren't supposed to do, and now it's coming to the responsibility concept, and it's weighing too heavy on them. Right. And on the flip side, if they do make it through, what we're going to find is a lot more people are going to be suffering with Alzheimer's, dementia, Parkinson's, a lot of neurological diseases, because they didn't take care of themselves and their mental health and their cognitive health younger. So finding your happy at this time has to be intentional, and not, I don't care about nobody, I live my life for them, that sort of stuff, because that's where we go on with bitches, so we go on the flip side, but I got time for myself type thing. It has to be that there's going to be an intentional growth experience here, and my family or the people that are around me have to be part of this growth, because they depend and demand so much of you.
Sorry. So how do you deal with, okay, we women, right? We have this gene in our DNA molecule, which I call guilt. Mm-hmm. How do you deal with that guilt? Because you feel like if you, take care more of you, and think more of you, you're being selfish, you're putting your family at risk. How do you deal with that and find you're happy without the guilt?
So here's the thing about guilt. Unless you purposely set out to harm the people that you live around, there's no need for you to be guilty.
We do,
so we have to,
Janelle.
I get that, but we have to be able to reframe that we're not purposely setting out to hurt people, right? And that starts there. And I actually, as you said, that I actually want to read a quote that when I'm doing my self-care for my professionals, I always talk about this, about the whole concept of that we're bamboozled to think that having self-care is selfish. We're bamboozled to think that. And as parents, we watch our own parents take care of us, not take breaks, right? We did that, and we think that that's the way in which we're supposed to be taking care of our children. So this is the quote. It says, "We've been bamboozled into believing that it's selfish to take care of our own needs, when in fact, that's where all authentic caring begins. For many of us who grew up with role models of moms who lived only to meet the kids' needs, and dads who were workaholics, who never took time for themselves, selfish must be reframed to self-care." Wow. So that's why I said you have to be intentional in this age range. I think it starts before, but unfortunately, a lot of people will only catch on later. You have to be intentional in that when you do take time for yourself, you're teaching your children that this time for myself is just as important as you taking time for yourself.
Right.
So you're teaching a life skill.
Is what JOSANNE was talking about, the analogy about being on the plane, and when the plane's in danger, that oxygen mask comes down and you put it on yourself first and then your family. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, Joyanne breaks saying no with a huge smile is awesome.
Yeah.
If you learn that, Joy, that's amazing. I still have to learn how to say no.
And no just means next opportunity. Maybe I'm not the person for this opportunity.
I like that.
That's how I receive a no. When somebody tells me no, it means next opportunity. Maybe there's a next opportunity for you to deal with somebody else, or there's a next opportunity that will present itself for me to learn from somebody else.
I wrote that
and so,
down.
Our 35 to 50, I'm concerned for them as a societal perspective. And I'm more on the concern side for the dementia and the Parkinson's and the neurological diseases, because if they're not eating properly, if they're not exercising well, if they're highly stressed, that is the next thing that will come. And then if you haven't done a really good job at raising your children, then you know what happens next.
Yeah.
Home happens if
Right.
they can afford to. So that's why we have such a large population of abandoned seniors. And it's going to happen. If you look at these stats with dementia, it's risen.
Yes.
It's doubled. We know you can tell me people in your age group that you already know are showing signs. I can tell you appearance of my friends' age groups that are already compromised by it. So it's so important now more than ever, especially coming out of the pandemic, that we do spend some time intentionally growing and healing, and that's where we'll find our happy.
Okay. All right. I noticed the time is just flying by. So can we go to the next age group, please? And I think this is the one in which I reside.
So let's say 55 to 75.
Yeah.
Now, I have a beautiful mentor called Dr. Herbert Harris, and I'm going to read something that perhaps will make you smile a little bit more when you come into that. And he talks about this particular generation is in the third stage of life, which is power.
Okay.
Exactly, right. You didn't know that this exists, right?
No.
So he says, it is in this stage that you perfect your ability to make things happen. It comes together in the third stage of life. During this stage, you generally attain your greatest success and experiences or your greatest failures. Having learned the basics of life and mastered your appetites and emotions, it is during this stage that you learn how to reach down to the very core of your being and pull out just a little bit more of whatever is needed. Here you master your laws of success and help others do the same. You master the skills of multiplying your powers through the efforts of others.
Nice.
So that gives you a completely different perspective.
Yep.
But when you think about it, this is when you speak your mind. Okay, what I want
Yep.
to say.
Yep.
I can speak Bayesian language, right? You lean more into the things that you were interested when you were younger without an apology. This is what you like. You want to paint your kitchen red, it going in red. There ain't nobody that could tell you that, mommy, that looks stink. Archie, what you doing? That. So I think when we frame it that way, and sometimes what makes it unfortunate here is that people have that attitude, but their health can't support the effort of it. That's why it's so important between 21 to 40 and 45 to take care of self, to deal with whatever traumas, physiological traumas and mental traumas that are happening. Because when you get to that stage and you're comfortable with doing and saying what you feel like, do you have enough energy to even do it? I felt sad over the last couple of days with Blacks dying. From Trinidad.
Yes.
And he's right at that cusp. So much to give, so much more to give as mentors. And it wasn't even, people say he had COVID. No, he actually had kidney and heart and lung failure earlier. And when you think about it, that's lifestyle. All the things, late nights, food. He was talking about it on an interview, right? And now he's at the stage where he wants to mentor wholeheartedly.
Yes.
Give back. He can't do it because he didn't have the physiological strength to do it.
Okay.
So you're finding your happy is also about how do you take care of your body.
Right.
So when you get to that power stage, you can still continuously do.
Right. And I wrote it down and I left the piece of paper at home. Finding my happy is being able to find things when I want to. I'm reaching that stage now where I'm just forgetting where I put things. So anyhow,
so let me pause because that's often the mistake we make.
Okay.
You're not reaching the stage where that is happening.
Mm-hmm.
You're at the stage where you have to pay specific attention to any cognitive deficits and try to correct them and practice getting back your memory.
Okay.
Practice getting back your balance, because we've almost allowed that to be a rite of passage in that stage.
And
it is not.
Okay.
It is a warning. Your body's telling you, from a standpoint of memory, episodic memory, long-term memory, short-term memory, you need to do things to improve it. You need
Right.
to eat food that help improve it. And so a lot of us are just being comfortable with saying, oh, you know, I passed that, I ain't supposed to remember. You are supposed to remember things. There
Right.
are exercises, there are drills, you know, you are supposed to be doing these things. And dementia and Alzheimer's is not a rite of passage. It is poor mental health that we have not labeled poor mental health. We just
Interesting.
label it rite of passage. Yeah.
Well, it was just getting ready this morning and I put it one side and I didn't take it up when I was packing the bag. But it's what you're talking about in terms of diet. Now, they said that diet is not necessarily, and it's not only the food that you put in, but it is the people you surround yourself with. So it's also what you do in terms of the physical. So it's all part of it. That was basically, but it wasn't quite, they worded it much better than I did. So it's the emotional, the physical, and the social, all blending in to being part of how you can find that happy. So I can't believe the time is, my goodness. I wanted to talk about the physical, because we talk so much about the spiritual. We know how important that is. We the emotional, but the physical, the importance of exercise, which I know a lot of us don't like to talk about or even hear about, you know, but incorporating fitness into finding our happy.
Yes. So let me just say that your happy does not exist if you don't have physical fitness. Because if you don't have physical fitness, or you don't have movement, or you don't have play, happy doesn't exist. And I was telling you when you invited me in to do this, it's like, I'm coming, yes, because I actually did my dissertation on this.
We are going to talk about that another time, Janelle. We are going to, because I want to do that completely. Right, but I haven't read up on it. I haven't researched it properly. You can see I am not right. That's not right. So that is going to be a whole next another discussion. But please go ahead.
So so in the dissertation, I talk about movement, physical activity, and play. So that's what I want to bring into this conversation. That we have to understand that in order to be happy, we have to engage in movement, which is the first construct that allows us to see the world as human beings, right? And a commitment to purpose of tasks and a commitment to facilitating growth. That's what movement is. And then when we look at physical activity, is any bodily movement that produces any skeletal muscle that requires energy expenditure. And so the thing about that is when you're not moving and your muscles cannot move your body, your physical energy is depleted. So that's why physical activity is so important. Physical activity is not going to the gym. Physical activity is exercise, working in the household, recreational. And then there's the last concept of play. Play is your most key to your happiness. So play is actually considered contextually as movement that allows an individual to actually enjoy and have some level of pleasure, enjoyment, and competitive edge and advantage in the pursuit of movement. So when you do not play, you get old.
Wow.
It increases your biological hormones to help you in your homeostatic function.
Okay.
So it's so important that physical activity is part of your happy.
Right.
Right? As you age and you cannot move, you actually decrease your happy hormones. That's why the sick and shut in never come back to church.
Wow.
Because they're so depleted of movement. We come to them, but we don't even understand the power of them coming out, getting sunlight, being able to express their bodies, moving in the air, socializing is so important. We put them in homes, and they're in homes that may not be sociable to their experience of life. And so when you talk about finding your happy, movement is key. Because when I can no longer move, it means I'm dependent on somebody. And I always tell people, if you don't move and you comfortable with not moving, I hope the person that you grooming out there know how to move you well. Wow. And they don't move you in a home. I hope you've trained them well enough. I hope you pay them well enough that when you're incapable of moving, that they can take care of you the way how you're supposed to be. And 9 out of 10, the answer is no. They can't. You know, and therefore, then happiness, we can't be contented and we can't be grateful because we then have to depend on somebody else who did not sign up for this assignment.
Yeah. Well,
physical movement is key.
My movement is also wonderful for the mind and spirit. I love to swim.
Absolutely.
So swimming is one of the most precious gifts that I think that a lot of us need to take advantage of, and I'm quite happy that I learned at a very young age. So
that and floating, it's good for your cognitive health because what it does, it reduces the sensations, the external sensations that you or I have. Sometimes we're in overload. So when you lay float, right, or when you're in the water, you don't control the senses, kind of can relax a little bit and put you at ease. And that's why a sea bath is so soothing, and that's why old people love to go to the beach.
And we're so
like to talk at the
we're
beach.
Gifted with you know, we're surrounded. I just wish that we would take advantage of it a little bit more, but that's going to be another session here on Link Up as well. But I'm looking forward to our chat though on the physical activity part, because that's one that we seem to leave out of the whole dynamic. Thank you, Janelle. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much.
And she's going to be back, believe you me, because she's got a whole dissertation to share with us on physical activity.
And I do include the beach.
Oh,
the beach
okay.
Is part of that class.
Well, there you go. I'm playing music.
Caribbean experience.
Exactly. Freedom. Sweet. Stay safe, Janelle. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pete.
We're going to take a quick break and we'll be back. I'm so happy that you were able to join us today on the Link Up. I enjoyed linking up with my friend JOSANNE Leonard out of Trinidad and Tobago, and also Janelle, the 2 J's today. That's right, Janelle Chase Bears, and taking a look at finding your happy. And however you choose to do it is up to you. You know within yourself what makes you happy, what makes you content. If it's reading, if it's listening to music, if it's like me going to the beach and swimming and just enjoying the peace and the smell and so on that that particular atmosphere gives you. Or if it's dancing. You know, some people like to put on our own special type of calypso music and work up a sweat to that and feeling really good afterwards. But the importance of self-care cannot be stressed enough. We need to take care of ourselves, and as Janelle just said, we need to do it early enough that, you know, it doesn't become a problem when we're too old to enjoy the life that we're trying to achieve. So self-care is critical. Mental health has been a phrase that has been bandied around during this pandemic, and we've noted how important it is to us as social beings that we need to find some kind of way to stay physically fit and mentally fit. So journal, if that's your thing. Jot down, you know, at the end of the day, how did the day go for you? What could have gone better? How were you in that day? You know, who did you meet in that day that brought a smile to your face? What happened in that day that made you smile? You know, and then perhaps finding that again. So journaling is really a great way to do it. But again, I cannot stress enough, it depends on you, what makes you content, what makes you happy. Because if you are happy, you are able then to look after the people who are in your surroundings. You're able to do that a lot better. And I certainly hope that you find your happy, whatever that happy is. My happy is this, spending time with you on Thursdays from 10 until noon. And we're going to do this again, God willing, next Thursday. Thank you so much for joining me. And whatever you do, here's hoping you find your happy. Have a good one.